Hello, my name is Jeremiah,
And I'm Sarah.
and we want to invite you to Cooking with Friends. It's a 7-series plant-based cooking event, kind of based on Sarah and I's experiences and our adventure towards healthier living.
So if you are following us online, please go to Facebook and make sure that we know that you're there so we can send you information. We have stuff that we have handed out to everybody. And you can also have comments there, and Michelle in the back is going to be monitoring those. And now I need 2 volunteers who want to cook tonight with us. Michelle, please. Miss Betty, do you want to cook with us? You don't have to. Okay, awesome. So if you want, what we'll do, Michelle, meet me over here at the kitchen, and we're going to wash hands and get aprons on, and Jeremiah's going to do a small introduction.
All right, cool.
This is echoey.
So they're going to do that, and then
No, it's going to be
I just
great.
want to say, just like everybody, Sarah and I have had a unique experience, which we'll kind of go into later on. But I will say that letting go of your traditional eating habits, letting go of those comfort habits, and those tendencies, it isn't easy. It can be a humbling experience. It can be kind of scary, and it can be kind of emotionally painful. Our habits, whether they are good habits or bad habits, positive or negative, they're comforting to us. And so in that sense of comfort, it offers predictability in kind of a chaotic and uncertain world. We've had a lot of friends over the past 2 years that have kind of taken a negative road to health because it's convenient food, it's comfort food, it's no time in the kitchen, or they're just stressed out. It's just taking them. Food has a way of taking you to a comfort place, whether it's good or bad for you. But letting go, just like Sarah and I found out, can be pretty awesomely rewarding, and it's a liberating experience. It's like taking a bandage off of a wound that allows that wound to heal. It's kind of tough ripping that off, but once you get to that point to where you're ready to rip off that bandage, you can heal yourself, we feel, through a plant-based diet. Pardon me, I'm looking at my notes here. So we feel that plant-based diet is not only healthy, but it can offer a pretty cool adventure in the kitchen. Sarah and I have 2 young kids. Our kitchen is always chaotic and hectic at all times. In fact, we talked about having a cooking show, Cooking with Toddlers, or Chaos Kitchen, or something like that. Sarah and I use our diet and our plant-based knowledge of cooking to go on dates. We go on these adventures. We don't even leave the comfort of our chaotic kitchen because it's kind of hard to sometimes. And so we can go all around the world tasting different types of food, different ways of cooking, plant-based, and like I say, never leave the comfort of our kitchen. And so allowing yourself to look for a change is a huge initial step. So again, we're glad that everyone is here and is eager to learn. And whether you're already doing a plant-based diet, a mostly plant-based diet, or you're here to learn, Sarah and I are always learning, whether it's from magazine articles, a newspaper, or the internet, our friends. We're always learning. We're always trying to find these new cooking adventures. And so whether you're trying to establish healthier eating routines, or you have more nutritional goals that you're trying to meet, or you just want to simply learn more, it's no accident that you're here, and you'll find that you'll start living healthier in body, you'll start living healthier in mind, and the blessing for Sarah and I, we're living healthier in faith. And so, like I say, there's no accident that you're here, and we believe that a plant-based diet is not only healthier, it's just a good way of life. Is there anything that you want to interject at all?
No, I think that's perfect.
All right, so just imagine for a second you're living on a high-salt, high-fat, high-sugar diet, and it's easy for Sarah and I to imagine that because about 4 or 5 years ago we were living that. We thought we were eating healthy, eating organic, but we're still kind of eating the wrong kind of stuff sometimes. And so if you can still imagine with me you're in that situation and someone says to you, hey, you need to start eating a little healthier, and they hand you this high fiber veggie sandwich full of herbs and avocado. And to some of us, that sandwich will probably sound pretty appealing. I mean, it sounds really appealing to me, but not back then. And so, but for some of us, it may sound impossible to even to make that step towards that different type and style of eating. And that's why we're here. And again, welcome. We're so glad that you're here. So it's not your fault if you've tried a vegetarian diet or a plant-based diet or tried to switch this lifestyle, because these days our foods are unnaturally modified to be very unnaturally stimulating. Our foods are engineered to our taste. So if you tried to break away from what you're doing, or you just thrown your hands up in the air and you've given up and say, well, there's too much information out there, I don't know where to start, again, you're in the right place. Like I say, your tastes are accustomed to a diet of foods that are unnaturally stimulating and perfectly optimized for your pleasure. Even a satisfying and delicious meal could probably taste pretty bland at first. But there is hope, and I sincerely hope that you can see that hope tonight and the things that we're going to prepare tonight. So here's an example. All we ask you to do is just allow your taste buds to change, allow your mind to wrap around the thought of changing and switching to a plant-based diet. And here's an example. Just 2 weeks ago, Sarah made an amazing, well, I didn't think it was going to be amazing, but it was a cauliflower soup. And I enjoy cauliflower. I like the texture of it. I like the taste of it in salads or whatever. But when it came to a soup, here's this white soup that is there. And I thought to myself, I'm not going to enjoy this, but how am I going to tell Sarah that I don't enjoy this? And she says, well, just try it. So I tried the soup. I wrapped my head around this, and it was absolutely amazing. And then she said, well, you didn't finish putting everything on this soup. And I was like, what else goes on it? She's like, well, these roasted pumpkin seeds, the pepitas, and this pomegranate you need to put on it. So here we have this white soup, these green pepita seeds, and this red pomegranate. And I'm adventurous, but I thought, okay, this is not going to be good. I was completely wrong. It's probably one of my favorite soups. We actually had to go back to the store, get another pomegranate because we ran out, so I could finish up all the leftovers. So just like I say, your taste will adjust if you give them time. You got to rip that Band-Aid off, that bandage off, allow them to adjust. And they can adjust faster than you can imagine. And once you've stripped away all the junk food and you've gone from the old into the new, you will find enjoyment, contentment, and just excitement in the kitchen. It doesn't really matter how long it takes to prepare these meals, because sometimes it is time consuming. And as my father-in-law says, good food takes time. And so if you're willing to take this journey with us, you'll find that you will likely even find a deeper sense of faith, just like Sarah and I have. And we've been extremely blessed for that. And we are blessed for our church family that is here. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Sarah and let her get started.
Wonderful. Well, for those of you cooking at home, we're going to go ahead and turn up to about medium high and get things heating up. So I think about 6 on this. I think you turn it sort of like there. All right. So this soup has sort of made a transformation. When we first made this lifestyle switch, we were using recipes that were predominantly Whole30 because they were, we were still eating meat, but we were trying to get away from the unhealthy ways that I was cooking with several sticks of butter and things along those lines. And we were making this healthy lifestyle change. And so I was using Whole30 recipes and pulling them up. So this originally started as a chicken pot pie soup. And then when we dropped out the chicken part, I just replaced it with vegetable broth. And so it's sort of a good illustration of how you can take one of your favorite recipes and then modify it as you change and as your tastes change. And so for those of you who are cooking at home and for those of you who are here that may make this soup later, if you would like to use a little bit of oil to get started, you can. If you don't want to do that and you are trying to go 100% plant-based, whole foods, then just omit that. And then we have broth, so we'll show you on the camera. When there starts to sort of get a browning on the bottom of the pan, you just add a little bit of broth, and that sort of helps start to build your base for the soup. Okay?
And like to say, we're meeting you where you are because that's where we were met. So we were cooking with oil, so to make that transition is kind of hard sometimes.
Right.
But we're just trying to meet everybody on this even playing field. And then if you want to transition away from the oil, you can. And so a whole foods plant-based diet doesn't use a lot of oil.
Okay, so we're going to put in the carrots, celery, and onions. There is a little bit in there, yes. And we'll just go ahead and give that a good stir around. I don't know how long these are going to take
how
to
much
heat up.
carrot versus onion and celery have you put into this dish?
So the recipe calls for about 3 large carrots, 3 stalks of celery, and then 1 large onion. And so that's what we have in each of these pots that will hopefully start to heat up here soon.
Yes.
Yes, hello.
When we buy the vegetables, are we supposed to just get what's on the shelf, or are we looking for organic? Like, does it make a difference
So,
to use?
turn it all the way
We
up.
try to go more organic, but sometimes you can, and sometimes it's just a mix match. And we try to get as much organic as we can, but sometimes that's just simply not the case.
I don't know offhand, but there is something that they call the dirty dozen, and those fruits and vegetables you should always buy organic, but that's something that you can Google and look up specific. The rest of them are sort of hit and miss. If you can get them organic, I
Getting
think.
hot?
Is it? I'm not feeling anything yet. Sorry, technical difficulties. But
They were working
yeah, so-
earlier. We almost made waffles on them.
Oh, you have to turn it on. Mine's on though, and it's still not owning. There's no light, right? Oh, does that change anything? No light? Okay. So is this the issue then, maybe? Well, nothing like having a cooking diet. We're going to apparently go raw tonight.
It's going raw.
Even healthier.
So we promised this was all
Yeah,
working before.
No, no. So right now what we're going to do is we're going to saute this until we get to the point that the onions are starting to get translucent. And once that happens and things are sort of cooking, then we will put the garlic in just until it's fragrant. And then we will add the potatoes and the broth. There's no light at all.
Sorry, it's the first class. You have to have technical difficulties.
Just working the kinks
Yeah,
out.
here we go.
Aha,
That's on.
alrighty.
So these still,
Yep.
there's no light. Oh yeah,
There we
there's
go.
a light.
Cool.
Okay, cool.
It was this.
Tripped?
Yeah, those little
tripped
power
again.
strips.
Yeah, it tripped again. We're gonna have to plug it into a different one.
We have to do 2.
So we can do one here, and then we can do one in the back, and we can let
Okay,
yeah, you can just guide.
okay.
We can go back.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah, please.
absolutely.
Do you want to turn this one off? And we'll just cook on, we'll cook on yours.
All right, so now we know that we need to put them on two
Teresa.
different
Okay.
Yeah,
things.
So give us 2 seconds while we reset. I'm going to move
I can
this
take this in there.
section. We'll move all of this stuff
All right.
in to,
And just go ahead and put on like two from high, yeah?
thank you, Michelle. And if you can take that in, and then we've got the cream, the coconut cream that just needs to go in also.
All right, thank you.
And we'll just cook out here together. Oh, and here's their broth also. Let me run that in real quick. All right. And Teresa, actually with the number of people that we have, I don't know that we'll need to make that unless we want to just make it because it's already prepared and the food will go bad. So we'll go ahead and make it if you want to just listen.
Cool. All right, we're cooking with one hot pad right now. And so, yes. All right. So
All
the
right, here we go.
the dirty dozen that
So this is
that
on
Sarah was
and
speaking of, that you
about-
should always try to get organic. Sorry, Pastor Bob. Would be strawberry, spinach, kale, collard greens, mustard greens. They all fall in that broadleaf section. Nectarines, apples, grapes, cherries, peaches, pears, bell and hot peppers, celery, and tomatoes. All the ingredients that we have tonight are organic. So no fear, there's no dirty dozen up here. The thin skins. So Nancy said it's typically things that with thin skins that you want to stay away, you want to get organic. Yes.
Okay, we're good. We'll bring it back out. Sorry, 2 seconds. We're going to bring it back out now. I think we finally got, this is everything that we need, and then I'm going to rewash my hands.
So Sarah's already, so in your recipe, you will have a cup of cashews, raw cashews. I'm not sure what it says on the recipe cards, but you do soak those cashews in warm water for a period of time. And then once they soak for a while, you drain that water off, and those go into a cup, into 1 can of coconut oil. Now, as far as a whole foods, plant-based diet, or not coconut oil, coconut milk, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's a lot of coconut oil. Yeah, so coconut milk. So coconut milk does contain a fairly high amount of saturated fat, which is not all bad, but you want to use that sparingly. But for this particular recipe, and through this series of cooking events that we're doing, we're starting out very hearty because it's cold weather and hearty is good. And as we move into the spring, we're going to get lighter fare. So hopefully we will give you enough recipes to really push you through the entire year and encourage you to explore and discover all this stuff on your own.
Okay, so these are heating up.
Finally, let's go ahead and give them sort of a stir. And are there any questions or any comments at this point from anyone out there that may be watching or here in our live audience?
We got Teresa here.
So these actually have like a very small amount of oil because I wasn't sure how this was going to cook as far as being even or whatnot. So it has about less than a tablespoon of oil just in the bottom, and that's just going to sort of keep things from sticking. But from this point forward, we're going to be using broth when it looks like it's going to try to stick or as it sort of browns on the bottom of the pan. No. Oh, yes, I'm sorry, we did. We used this coconut.
So sun cocoa. So this is a sunflower oil and a coconut oil blend. We like this.
I mean, all oil is heavily processed,
yeah,
but
so this
is just our choice.
So we get this at Walmart, and Kroger and Food Line sell this brand as well. So it's we kind of switched away from stuff. We have an African gray parrot at home, and we used avocado oil at first, but then we found out that could be quite toxic to small birds.
As dangerous as Teflon.
Yeah, as dangerous as Teflon. So if you have birds, stay away from Teflon and stay away from avocado oil.
So hopefully these will heat up.
And so just just to reiterate something we were preparing some soup beforehand, and I said, should I add more broth? And Sarah's like, absolutely not. We want to saute it. We don't want to boil it. So
Right.
I kind of got my hand smacked on that, but I'll just throw that in there. Let my lessons be your lessons. So
That's what this is all
That's
about,
right.
right? Yeah. All right, now we're sizzling, which is always a good sound to have when you're trying to cook. Well, hers is sizzling. Mine will hopefully be sizzling soon.
it was opposite earlier. Sarah's was sizzling and mine wasn't doing anything. And I was like, what is going on here?
Can we ask questions now?
Yeah,
Yeah, please,
absolutely.
yes.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Look how beautiful. it's
Talk about plant-based. I think about a garden where you have tomatoes and regular vegetables and plants. But that includes trees
So that would,
that have nuts.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So anything, so what is considered plant-based? Anything that's not meat?
anything is not meat. So you have two.
Or byproduct.
Or
So
byproduct,
like
or-
milk, cheese,
yeah,
things
things like
along
that.
those lines, eggs also.
And we'll go into our story later on, but so that's a very good question. So plant-based diet would be avoiding any types of meats, any types of dairy products, any types of eggs, and this includes fish as well. I've been this way for about a year now because we've slowly made a transition. We're slowly working more towards whole foods plant-based. So the difference between plant-based and whole foods plant-based is you really wouldn't use any types of oils at all. And for some reason they say that honey is not on a whole foods plant-based diet. And I got this information from Forks Over Knives website. But I feel like if the honey is ethically sourced through a great apiary and they take care of their bees, I don't think that that's a problem, as long as you really know where the honey comes from. And we're in such a small community. We have such amazing resources here, just small time family farms. And if you explore that, you can find these people. One of our favorite apiaries is Just Bee apiary. It's in Vesuvius, right? Yeah.
They're relatively new.
They're
Yeah.
growing.
So Britt and Hannah are their names. Yes.
Here, we can hear your wife, but you're a little bit more difficult to hear over here.
She's always loud. So I'll try to speak up. No.
I think you should call that assertive.
Yeah, assertive, not loud. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Well, my wife and I, we do this a little bit ourselves too, but when I describe that to people, plant-based, for the lady, I just sum it up as you eat fruits, vegetables, nuts, grains, legumes.
Yes, absolutely.
That's like that little 5 where that covers everything.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you can get all the nutrients that you need from a plant-based diet. As far as protein, you can get all the protein that you need as long as you have a wide variety of plants in your diet. The only nutrient that you cannot get naturally, that we do not naturally synthesize, would be B12. And B12 is a bacteria, and no animal, and humans and animals do not naturally synthesize this. So we encourage you to take a supplement. A lot of higher end brands of nutritional yeast will have vitamin B12 in it, and we use a lot of nutritional yeast in the things that we prepare. So we need to get out of the way of thinking that certain foods will offer certain things. Oh, I need to drink milk to get calcium, or I need to eat meat to get my protein. Because somewhere in there, there's a middleman, and it's if a cow can produce its own protein by just eating plants, then we can produce our own protein as well. And so you don't want to look to individual foods either to get your nutritional basis off of. So you don't want to look to broccoli to get your calcium. You don't want to say, well, I need to eat a lot of broccoli to get calcium. What I want to do is I just want to eat a wide variety of this plant-based diet, and you can get absolutely everything that you need. But we strongly recommend that you do supplement with a B12 for sure. Any more questions? Yes, ma'am.
When you were transitioning, I know for me, my big thing is going to be dairy and butter and oils as a start. Do you suggest maybe certain things to slowly bring it down, or because I think my problem is going to be cold turkey with dairy and all the products.
When we first did our program, we used Arbonne, which we will touch on briefly. And they eliminate the top 8 allergens, which dairy is one of, and then they also eliminate other food groups that cause inflammation. But one of the things that they do allow you to have is ghee, because it has the milk fats removed. So it sort of gives you, the feel of butter when you're cooking, without some of the inflammation. Some people don't like the way that ghee tastes, though. There is a little bit of a different taste to it. So that's when we started cooking predominantly. Yes, Ghee.
Yes.
And-
I particularly didn't like the taste of this highly refined butter.
Right.
That it clarified. So we recently made our own. It's an almond milk based, basically a vegan spread. And with the addition of nutritional yeast, a little bit of salt, and I think it's a little of the sun cocoa oil. Like, we try to stay away from the oil, but it's a lot better than the other stuff. You get palm oil and a lot of vegetable oils and the stuff at the store. And we were really surprised at how close this tasted to actual butter. And we made it with ourselves. We made it at home ourselves. And we have...
It lasted about a week, so you
Yeah.
could probably make a batch and then just keep it for the week. To go back to your question, though, I think that, at least from my personal opinion, if you are going to switch from something that has one ingredient, like butter, okay, to something that has 15 ingredients so that it tastes like butter, I think that you should at least have a question, is this better or isn't it better? If I use less of this in a moderate fashion, then, where does that lie? So as you're transitioning, I think that it's sort of up to you. Any step you make in the right direction is going to be beneficial. So if you can get rid of the cheeses and you can get rid of the milk, if you're still using a little bit of butter, I think that you've made a significant improvement. There are, like Jeremiah was saying, there are cheeses that you can make at home. They do have commercial vegan cheeses that are really pretty good. But just check the ingredients, because you don't want to switch 15 ingredients for one ingredient.
Yeah. Because the front can say one thing, but when you flip around and look to the ingredient list, it totally contradicts everything that the front says sometimes.
Okay, so
see,
if we can switch, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, because I'm new to this, it's only been 5 months that I've been working on this with this diet. It's not meant to be a punishment. So don't think of taking away all of the good stuff that you like, because if you're punished, who's going to stay with it?
Right.
If you have to take, 4 days or a week to get this down, then take those 4 days or a week. Don't just throw everything out in the trash, because, one, it's expensive.
Yeah, that's a good point. And we suggest transition over a period of two weeks. And when we say cold turkey, it's going to take about 2 weeks to really transition into this. If this is the eating habit that you want to create for the future.
All right, so we'll take a look now at this pan. You can see that the onions are getting translucent. They have been steaming really well, so there's actually no demonstration on how it sticks to the bottom, so that we can show you with the broth as it would have it. But we are at the point now where we're going to add our garlic. So if you're cooking at home and yours looks similar to this, go ahead and add the garlic. And they say to cook the garlic for about a minute or a couple of minutes until it becomes fragrant. So we'll give that a good stir around. How's your pan doing? Are you having fun?
Oh, yeah.
We love volunteers that are voluntold that they're going to help.
Hey, that's my life at home. I'm voluntold quite a bit, so.
Well, wonderful. So,
So a little history on me. I'm a prior Marine. I'm a retired U.S. Marine. I was in really, really good shape back in the day, and I still consider myself to be in pretty good shape. But then, based on the diet that I have, even though I was in good shape and I was young, I wasn't healthy. I consider myself now healthier than I've ever been in my life, as far as my mental faculties, my overall, the overall way that I feel. How would you describe this? It's
you can be unhealthy and be thin.
yeah, you can be
You know?
unhealthy and thin and in shape, but I'm not as in shape as I was back then. But I am a lot healthier than I was back then by doing a plant-based diet. And Sarah and I are still on our journey. We're still on our journey. We're not completely there yet.
We are going to now add the herbs. So in here we have thyme from our garden that maybe you can show it the camera a little bit easier. So this is thyme and sage from our garden. It has survived the snow. So we're going to give that a stir around. One of my favorite herbs that I always make sure to grow is lemon thyme. So if you're not familiar with that, I would definitely recommend adding that to your herbs. I really enjoy its taste in soups. It sort of brightens things up. And then we are going to add our potatoes. A lot of potatoes. So this is 2 pounds of potatoes. Sorry? Any potatoes will work. I personally like the red potatoes in this because I feel like the skins look really pretty. I do leave the skins on because there's some good nutritional elements to having the skins. And then before that gets too fun, we're going to give our broth.
Teresa, you had a question?
I was going to say, if you're using dried thyme, what would the exchange
Equivalent be?
be?
You know, we talked about that and I meant to look it up. Heidi, do you know the answer to that?
It's typically like 1 to 3. So if it's 3 teaspoons of fresh, it would be 1 teaspoon of dried.
Okay.
Some, like basil, is 1 to 2. So, but you can look it up and find it easily on Google.
Thank you.
But Sarah, I had a question because you said you were adding 2 pounds of potatoes, but the recipe card says 1 pound.
Well, then they're going to have a lot of potatoes.
I'm just questioning, is the recipe card incorrect?
The recipe card may be incorrect. My original recipe did call for 2 pounds. So this is the second typo that I've caught so far on that. But yes, so I typically do about a half a bag of the red potatoes, which is a 5-pound bag. So it's actually a little bit more.
Yeah,
But yes, so this is
I've
going to be...
tried a batch from your recipe, and it doesn't have that many potatoes. That's
Okay.
why I was wondering.
Well, yes. So we're
Okay.
going to have...
It's still delicious.
It's still delicious either way, but yes, thank you. So if you are at home, you may want to add some extra potatoes or just stick with the recipe. I think that what happened was when I took the chicken out, I replaced it with potatoes, and I just didn't make the transition. Sorry about that.
It's pretty much muscle memory for her at the house. I mean, she can whip this soup out in a matter of 15 minutes with all of the chopping and everything. So.
Going to do pepper, and this is sort of by eye also. I think Heidi and I had this discussion the other day. It's kind of hard to tell people how to cook when you're cooking because we just sort of do it naturally. So we're going to use probably about a half a teaspoon of pepper. With salt, I am going to go light on the salt tonight because I don't know where people are. We will have salt that you can add yourself. So if you are cooking at home, go ahead and add salt depending on what broth you're using. So the broth that we have actually has salt in it. And so I won't usually add salt until the end when you taste it and you don't know what the potatoes are going to do with it, whether you'll need more or not. But I've definitely made this soup too salty by having broth and then adding salt in.
Just once.
Just once. But this is my son's favorite soup, so we try not to mess it up too often. Right. So what we're going to do is we are going to continue to stir this and bring it up to a nice simmer and boil, and then we will put the lid on, and Jeremiah and Michelle are going to start working on our salad.
All right, cool. All right, so we're doing a kale pear salad tonight with it's a maple syrup vinaigrette. So we have fresh pears here. I feel these pears are a little ripe, so when we cut them, we're going to try to leave some of the skin on them so they don't get mushy in the kale. And something that I've learned is if you want, it's basically a quarter cup of oil, quarter cup of vinegar, and a quarter cup of maple syrup. The oil there's no nutritional value in the oil whatsoever. It is just there to help it spread and help the flavor of, it dulls down the bitterness of the vinegar, and it also allows all of the parts of the recipe to stick to the kale. So there are a lot of recipes that are out there that are really good recipes that do not use any oil whatsoever. But in light of this being the first class, we're going to use oil on this.
Does anyone out there have a recipe that they particularly like that does not use oil? Has anyone tried a recipe that you've used or found that you really like for a dressing that does not use oil? Okay. Yeah. Kojak? Okay. 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 What does...
You can also do that with arrowroot.
Okay, we've got some arrowroot. That's good.
Jeremiah, right?
Yes, sir.
So you're just starting this stuff, and you've been doing it for a year. You call it a journey.
Pardon me?
You call it a journey.
Yes.
It's a journey. I'm basically trying to talk to the crowd. I've been doing this since I've been 40 years old.
All right.
And it's to me, it's an adventure.
Yes.
There's no wrong or right in this.
It's
Too
all
many
about
potatoes,
taste.
Not enough potatoes. There's no wrong or right.
Yeah.
As long as you learn how to season these things, it's wonderful. And I'll be 68, and I'm doing very fine.
You are in good health, my friend.
I was a little scared when I did this.
Yes.
Because I told the people that taught me, if I got 3 kids, and if I go home and kill my kids, can I do this? And I was a little apprehensive. But for 27 years, people, it's worth the journey.
Yeah, it's
Because
amazing.
I'm not no bodybuilder, but I am fit.
I
thank God for that one.
And the possibilities are limitless. I mean, absolutely limitless. And another good thing about having a whole foods plant-based diet is you don't have to have 3 separate cutting boards for everything that's in your house. You don't have to have a cutting board for meat. You don't have to. You just do away with that. When we're done, we wash it under the sink, disinfect it, and put it on the drying rack. So we've got our kale is chopped up here, manageable bite size. We're going to put it in the bowl here. And like I say, this is just one bunch of kale. And Michelle, if you want to go ahead and do that.
Is this my bowl or is this all together?
We can put it all in there together. Or you can use that bowl and I'll put this in here. We're going to put the stems there, but so what we're going to do is now we're going to massage the kale. It's a spa day. It's a spa day for the kale today. So we're just going to massage it, and you want to lightly kind of crush and massage that, and you want it kind of change to a darker shade of green. And this kind of breaks all the binds in there, allows the flavor of the kale to come out. And once it's massaged and you'll taste a piece of it, it doesn't taste like kale anymore. It seems like it has a saltier taste to it. So we're just going to lightly massage this in. Right?
Looking good.
Cool. Thanks.
Were you asking for a recipe for oil? Without
No,
oil?
A recipe for a dressing without oil that people may enjoy to make if they were looking for an alternative. We came up with several that we'll probably use in later cooking
on.
classes, but didn't know if there was anyone that had a favorite out there that wanted to share it right now.
Well, like I said, I use myself. Joe uses arrowroot, but I use Kojak. It's
Okay.
glucomannan is what it's called technically. But I use water,
Yeah,
and then whatever you want to do. I put lemon juice,
Yeah.
Italian seasoning,
yeah.
garlic. You can do whatever you want. But for the consistency, I put it in a jar, and I'll put the water, lemon juice. Sometimes I'll put, like, you see cranberry vinaigrette or something.
Right.
I'll put
You
a
see the
little
color
cranberry
changing.
organic
Yeah.
juice
Sure.
and just put that Kojak in there, and you shake, shake, shake. Don't put too much because it swells up 50% larger,
Okay.
50 times larger than it actually is. But you can make anything to that. And cold, hot,
Okay,
just.
so that sort of then acts like the oil does and allows
That's
it
the
to
basic.
coat the lettuce.
Water and Kojak makes
Awesome.
a base, and then you season. If you like garlic, just garlic. If you like,
Perfect.
you just do what you want. That's the beauty of this. You do what you
Wonderful.
want, and there's no wrong or right.
Right,
My
and
wife's
I'm-
always grabbing a cookbook, and I was, honey, the basics. And after the basics, do what you want. What do you think these people did that wrote this cooking book?
Cool.
What we're doing in this kitchen.
Yeah.
Make your own cooking book. Because I don't use cooking books.
Well, wonderful.
So Michelle was saying, and she really smells the aroma of the kale coming out after we're massaging it. And she asked, did we do this every time that we use kale? And typically, yes, for a salad, but not when we're like if you're doing the coconut dish that I spoke of earlier, where you're sauteing it with onions. You really let the juices from the kale itself and the onions, basically, it will steam itself in a pot. You just put it on top, and it's really scrumptious. So, and like I said, she mentioned that she can really smell the aroma of the kale come out.
Good. Almost has a lemony smell.
Yeah, it's absolutely wonderful. And this recipe is just a simple recipe. You have your pears. You're going to have the sweetness of the pears, probably a little more so because these pears are a little farther ripe. I like the crunch of a pear, but this is going to absolutely be great. And we also have a cup of pecans here. Now, we'll use probably half of this. And we have the salad tonight that has the kale salad that we've prepared earlier. It does not have any of the pecans in there. They're on the back table because we were concerned of a nut
Nut allergy that's
allergy or
here.
anything like that.
No nut
So if we don't have any objections, we'll go ahead, once we dress this salad down, we'll go ahead and put these pecans in there so everyone can get some of this. And of course, we have chopped pecans in the back.
Are these raw or
These,
toasted?
I think these are toasted. Wouldn't you say that? I think these
Yeah.
are raw.
I don't know.
Let me tell
I
you.
didn't buy them.
I think they're raw. Yeah. They're good. I love pecans, but I do not like walnuts. It's a predicament for me.
So as far as our soup goes, for those of you who are at home and cooking on your own, we
go
are
ahead and
still
get
just
you,
sort of boiling. You should
we'll chop 'em up.
be cooking until the potatoes are fork tender and the carrots are also done, somewhere around 20 to 25 minutes, depending on how hot your stove is and if it works.
So we're just, go ahead.
Okay.
Can we see a shot of what the soup
Yeah,
looks like right now?
absolutely. So this is sort of where we are now.
I like to do
You
a
can see
little,
everything is sort of coming together beautifully. Hopefully it's smelling really good out there. Did you? Yeah. This is a fourth batch of soup today. Thank you, Sandy, who also made 2 batches of soup, so we should have plenty.
And thank everybody for their contributions to this and speaking up about their favorite stuff, because we are a community here. That's what this is all about. We want the longevity of our community here. We want to give back. We want people to see that there's an alternative way. And we'll discuss later on, you know, a lot of ailments that you have can be fixed with simple ingredients. And once you start feeling good, once your feet stop hurting, once your back stops hurting, you won't want to go back to the old way of eating at all.
28 years?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
28 years later. You will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And you'll slip back. I mean, we still struggle with sweets and things like that, but we know the consequences. We know the consequences of that.
And
And
I
it's-
too have an issue with dairy. I really like ice cream, and summer is hard.
Ice cream,
I
yes.
know. Yep.
So Michelle asked if we were doing a rough chop. It's all personal preference. I mean, if you want to put whole pecans in there and you want to get a bite of a whole pecan in there with a whole piece of a pear and your kale, that's great. If you want to chop it up, I like personally to have little bits of the pecan in the crevices of the kale, and so you just get this really filling whole bite, and you get the crunch, you get the sweetness of the pear, and plus the sweetness of the dressing as well. So,
And this is also a really versatile salad.
Yes.
So you can add any fruit, you can do a lot of different dressings, you can add any nuts that you want. I mean, you can also add other vegetables. It's sort of our go-to as far as, you know, it's time to clean out the refrigerator and we have a bunch of stuff that needs to go. This definitely is something that you can do. Depending on the lettuce that you have, kale certainly has more nutritional value than a lot of lettuces, and so it makes a nice base, especially if you have massaged it so that it's nice and tender.
and again, we do want to reiterate, so this would be considered a plant-based diet because we're still using oils. A whole foods plant-based diet, you would not use any oils whatsoever. And that's just a whole new ingredient list. But if you want a great list of recipes for great salad dressings that don't use any oil, go to Forks Over Knives recipe. I mean, they have a whole gamut of stuff in there, and it's just fun to try. Some things you will like, some things you may not like. But just be.
Also doctor them to
You
your
can
taste.
you can doctor them up. Be prepared to make mistakes on this because we fall on our faces quite a bit when it comes to new recipes, and you may have missed one key step, or you may have just blundered the whole thing. But that's part of the adventure. That's part of the excitement of it because it might lead you to something else. We find a lot of our favorite things by accident.
So also if you're at home, we already have our cashew and coconut cream blended because the blender was going to be too loud in here to do with all of you here. So if you have a high-speed blender, you don't necessarily need to soak the cashews. If you don't have a high-speed blender, then I do recommend that you soak them in warm water. You'll want to then drain the water off, put them into your blender with a can of the coconut milk, and then blend until it's really nice and creamy and has no chunks. Like, we don't want the chunks of the cashew. That sort of gets rid of the illusion that you're eating cream. Okay, so.
And I'm 45 years old, and this still amazes me how things separate like this. It's just beautiful. So we have our maple syrup. It's heavier on the bottom. Then you have your vinegar, and of course your oil is going to float to the top. And we're gonna mix this all up. Did you have another fork out here?
No, but you can use this one.
Sweet. Thank you, my love.
Do the recipes that you use with this kind of diet, is it usually an apple cider vinegar?
Apples-
Or is it white? Or do you also
You can
use a
use
white
balsamic,
vinegar?
you can use red wine vinegar. I don't think that the vinegar necessarily matters.
Yeah.
And it's like a taste, the personal
It's a taste. We like this. This has it's raw. It has the mother in it. Bragg's is a pretty good brand. We do enjoy that. So I'm just mixing this up here, and Michelle and I are going to split this on both of our salads.
And that may be a little much for.
I know. We're gonna do it sparingly. And again, we're just gonna massage that in there. We're gonna let it sit for a little bit. Do you want some gloves?
I don't think it matters at this point. My
Okay.
hands were clean to start,
Oh, I know they were clean. They washed before. I just didn't want you to.
but I've already turned green. so.
Okay, cool. All right, so we're just gonna massage this back in there. And you'll find that the salad, you want to prepare your salad first. You want to prepare it and chill it and let all the flavor absorb into the kale. Now, we've already broken the binds on the kale. It's turned darker green than we first started. And you can really smell the vinegar in this. And so the longer you let it sit and chilled, the better it's going to absorb that flavor.
This is a lot less than I thought it would be.
It reduces a lot, and it reduces way more than this if you're doing like a steamed kale dish. You probably need 3 or 4 bunches of kale to feed 4 people if you're doing. Yes. Yes. I'm sorry. Excuse me. There we go. It's glistening, and you can see it's a much darker green that we have there.
Currently cooks predominantly plant-based. Okay. Do you guys have favorite recipes or things that are your sort of go-to? What's one of your favorites?
Scoot these in.
Is this working? Anyone's been to Cava? It's a restaurant. They have one in Charlottesville. But
Okay.
it's basically like an assortment of different things. You've got like a
I'm just
grain
gonna have 'em.
base, a legume base, and then you can build on that with different vegetables like, what are they? Brussels sprouts, you know, corn, different things. And you just keep building and building. And it's basically like a haystack, but better. And
Okay.
it's really, really delicious.
So sort of like one of the power bowls. We joke around
Yes.
all the time that you
Yes.
can't be vegan without eating in a bowl. Like there's just very few plate dishes. Everything either
Yep.
comes in a bowl or you just,
Exactly.
it's not
And it's
something that you can eat.
Super versatile, so
Yeah.
I really like that.
I must say, I've never heard an Adventist say that it's better than a haystack.
Well, that's funny. We've actually talked about doing a healthier version of the haystack with just different grilled vegetables and putting them together. So we may do that one of these times. So cool. All right, you're looking good.
So we're doing these pears. We've cut them in half, and we've halved the halves, and we've halved those, and so we're just kind of getting the center out with the seeds and the hard portions. That I don't know the proper terminology, but I know that stuff has to come out. The center has to come out. The core, yeah, that's right. And so we're just going to slice these into bite-sized pieces.
On the salad, our soup is pretty close to being done. I think hers got a little bit of a head start, so hers is actually ready to go. So what we will do is, if you are at home and your potatoes and carrots are ready to go, you can turn your heat off because the coconut cashew cream won't need to really be heated. There'll be enough heat in the soup. And then what you're going to do, let's see, we'll turn
go ahead and
you
put your
off.
nuts in.
Yeah, you just turn it straight off like that. Okay. We'll take the lid off, and if you want to dump your coconut cashew cream in and give it a good stir around, I think it should be really pretty. I'll hand this to you. Yeah, I don't want you to get burned.
I like that you can do everything on the cutting board without cleaning.
Yeah. Michelle says she likes that you can do everything on the cutting board without having to clean it. Everything is going to mix together anyway. And I'll come around to the camera. And so this is what we have here. So we have the pecans in there. We have the me slinging kale everywhere. I'm sorry. The pears in there, and you can see it's glistening with the dressing. And I'm looking forward to getting some of this. So it's just three simple ingredients. Yeah, this is all for me here. And once we've massaged that kale, we're not going to really go back because we don't want to squish any of the pears or anything that's in there right now. So this salad is basically done. And I may have I know she was right again. I may have put a little bit too much dressing in it, but the stuff that we have prepared for everyone else, it's perfect.
So this soup is also very versatile. If you want to add, again, I use this as a way to sort of clean out the refrigerator. I've put mushrooms in it before. I cook those usually when you're cooking the other vegetables early on. If you want to do peas or greens or something like that, you add that in at this point when you turn the heat off with the cream. Again, it can be a lot of different things depending on what you want it to be. I think the batch that Sandy made, she did go ahead and put some peas in. So if you want to try that, that would be available also. But pretty versatile, pretty easy to move things around. That's one of my favorite things to do with recipes, is to take things that I once really enjoyed and figure out how I can make them to be something that we would enjoy now. So I'm going to turn this off, and we can go ahead and start setting up the buffet.
This is my favorite part.
Eating?
Eating, yes.
Okay. And then, Pastor Bob, if you'd like to come up and do the blessing.
Okay, let's bow our heads. Loving Father in heaven, we thank you for the awesome way that you've designed these varied plants of different colors and textures and tastes, and they match the bodies that you've created for us, and how that we can have health, strength, and happiness as we conform to this simple formula that you've laid out for us. Thank you for this time together to learn, and bless this food, and thank you for those who have prepared this food, and for this time where we can enjoy this together. We thank you and ask this all in Jesus' name. Amen.
I'd like to take this time to thank David and Michelle Hall for helping us set everything up, Sean and Sandy for bringing the bread and all their support, Charlotte and Teresa for coming in and helping set up, and my mother-in-law for going and getting all the stuff that we forgot at the house and rescuing us on that. And if we're leaving somebody out, know that you're in our hearts, and we certainly do appreciate this opportunity. So please know that while we're eating, Sarah and I are going to share our experiences that really brought us to where we are right now, of why we made the changes, and hopefully convey some more of the health benefits of a plant-based diet. And yeah, so stick around, and I know you're going to stick around because we're eating, but we're about ready to enjoy this. You got it clean?
Soup that Matthias asks for if I give him a choice about what he wants for dinner. This is his favorite.
And this is definitely a 20 degrees outside soup. It's a hearty soup. It's gonna stick with you.
So if you are cooking at home, at this point we were sort of talking earlier. This recipe calls for fresh thyme, fresh sage, salt, and pepper. But it's important to know that, good food can also taste good. So if you like a little bit more garlic powder or onion powder or paprika, or you were saying that you really enjoy chili powder and you put it in everything, you can do anything you want, make it taste the way you want. Heidi and I were talking a few weeks ago about the fact that sometimes it's just not spicy enough. It doesn't have the right taste. So please, if you are at home and doing this, or if you're just learning and you're looking for recipes, don't feel like you have to just put a teaspoon in and then say it tastes bland. Add as much as you need to sort of give it the flavor, to accent different flavors as you sort of grow and change. So we are ready. I guess, do we need hot pads over there to put the hot soup on? I can, or I can leave it here. Which do you think? Okay.
I have a question, Sarah.
Sure.
About all the spices that you have normally in your cabinet
Sure.
and have used. Do you just continue to use those, or anything that you should stay away from?
No, I mean, we pretty much have a full cabinet of spices. I mean,
If we can find them.
If we can find it, it's
Yeah,
such a
things like
disaster.
blends, when
Yeah,
you go to the store
blends.
and you get like
Yeah, so not
are those
so-
okay to use, or are they?
You
there's
have
so
to
many
look.
preservatives?
We got rid of a lot of them when he got Alpha-Gal, because a lot of those have what they call natural flavoring in, and that can be beef products. So you have to be careful because some of those blends have things in them that you don't know about. We have a member here, Trudy, who's really, really good at reading labels, and so I'm going to ask her to do a little blurb on reading labels and the hidden things that are in labels. Typically, I would say it's probably safer to avoid blends because you may be getting something that you don't know, including MSG, which has a million different names, or things along those lines.
So you're looking for the spice.
Spice
and
alone.
That's it.
Yeah, just
on the label.
yeah.
Okay.
One of my favorite spices is a new discovery, but it's sumac, and it's really flavorful. It's got a lot of citrus. It gives you a lot of nutrients, and you can pretty much put it on anything that you want if you want to add a little bit of zing to whatever, whether you're doing veggie tacos or simply, I've put it on oatmeal before, and it's really good. So if you've never experienced that, and a lot of people say, oh, poison sumac. No, it's not that. It's a red spice. It's absolutely beautiful. It gets a little tacky when it's left out in the atmosphere, so be sure to keep it in its container. But it's a really flavorful, unique spice. And it's great in tea, yes. So we're going to move everything back to the back table. Please, does anybody does anyone else have any questions? And we'll be open for questions all night long. So if you do, just say hey you or whatever, and we'll both try to address that. I can cook for you, Nancy. I don't want you. I'll come and cook for you no matter what. Nancy gave us some quail eggs about 7 months ago.
Oh, you got quail?
Oh yeah, we got quail. But out of 32 eggs, 7 of them hatched, and they are the cutest things. And it's been a real pleasure to have them at the farm, and the kids love them, and everybody's really curious of them. So I don't know if Sarah let me have any more or not. So. So if everyone is ready to eat and try this masterpiece that we've prepared, we truly hope that you enjoy it. And please start at the buffet table in the back. I think we're doing self-serve, right? Self-serve. So everything is back there that you need. We have, yeah, we'll serve. We'll get you covered, Nancy. Yeah. So we have water up here. We also have some fizz. So with the fizz, just take 1 packet. Pour it into your cup with water. I don't know if we have ice up there or not, but it's really good. But just be aware, it does have a natural caffeine in it, and it can keep you awake. So it's kind of late in the evening for that, but they're really delicious.
Probably best to take that with you.
Yeah, probably best to take it with you at this point. And the tea that we have here is, I traveled to India many years ago, and a gentleman introduced me to this tea recipe. So the tea we have is an English breakfast tea. It's a black tea. It's decaffeinated because I don't want to put a pep in your step this late in the evening. It's flavored with cinnamon, cardamom, Spanish saffron, and it has a light sweetener of organic honey in that. In fact, honey from our Just Bee apiary. So please enjoy that. It's probably going to be very hot, but it's mild, and I think some people have tried it that really like tea, and they really enjoyed it. It's one of my favorite teas, so please enjoy that. But just be careful, it is still very hot. You have anything else?
No, I think that's it. If you'd like to go ahead and serve yourself, I think that everything is set up. We've got the soups, which are all pretty much the same. We're going to bring some salt and pepper out. I also have some options up here if you'd like a sprinkle of that. That I will put back there for you as well. And then the salad, and then we have several different kinds of bread. Sean has made
For
his
those of you
family's
who
potato
are
bread recipe.
watching online,
And then we do have a
while
plant-based
everybody else
butter
is
option.
going to be
Next week
serving
we're gonna try to
themselves,
get
getting
our acts
something to
together
eat,
and make the one that
we
we
will
do
be
at home.
transitioning to the second part of
We never, when we try these new
of
recipes,
the
we never
program
plan on
of
making
where
a
they're
lot
going to
of
be
it at once.
telling some of their personal testimonies. So if you can just hold on just a moment with us, they will be back in with that part of it.
We'll carry through and make more of it. And this particular butter butter substitute was really good.
That's good.
Yeah, and Sean doesn't even like butter. So as far as flour, Sarah has a gluten intolerance, and we found that out after a cleanse that we went through. We both found out a lot about our health, and we'll go more to that. But we use Bob's Red Mill 1-for-1 flour, and they do a blend. So it's a gluten-free flour.
That does not work well for bread, though.
No.
And so there's Kim's. I think it's Kim's. I can't remember exactly right now, but we can certainly put it up on the on Facebook for you all. But she has a really good blend of different types of flours that you can put together, like a sorghum and buckwheat and tapioca, and you add some potato flakes and things like that, which holds up better to when you're actually trying to make a bread, which needs some density. Yes, Michelle?
A lot of times over at Jeremiah's house, he says, "Here comes my guinea pig." Basically,
Yeah.
he doesn't say that, but that's what I feel like.
Yeah.
I'll sit down at the table and they'll say, "Hey man, I tried this, made this butter last night.
Yeah.
I tried it." I'm like, maybe not. And I don't like raw butter. Right? So he said, "You got to try it." So I
pretty spot on. Yeah,
If he hadn't told me it wasn't butter, I wouldn't know. I don't think.
it's really good.
My taste buds are going anyway.
Well, it's, you know, it's 4 ingredients versus like we were talking about the 15 ingredients that are in the store-bought stuff. But yeah, you can basically make anything. We make our own almond milk, so we're completely off of dairy. We bought an almond cow. You can make it in a blender at home, but it's a lot of filtering and stuff like that. So an almond cow is basically you put the water in, you put your almonds in, we put coconut and a little bit of maple syrup. So it basically has 4 ingredients, and we make 5 to 6 cups of almond milk at a time, and it's kid approved. It passed the kid test. They absolutely love it. So we make smoothies with that. We've recently experimented getting rid of dairy. I could not find a nut milk substitute for a cup of coffee that I've had that I really enjoy. I make a mocha at the house, and so I've recently discovered by adding a tablespoon and a half of cashew butter to my organic cocoa, my coffee, and with a little bit of vanilla in that and some almond milk, it makes it creamy just like it has dairy in it. So if you guys want that recipe, maybe I'll do a demonstration of that next time, but it's absolutely phenomenal, and it passed the wife test. She really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I actually like it better than hot chocolate, so
that's
that
saying
says
a
something.
lot.
So please go serve yourselves, and we are going to switch things over and
Yep.
get ready to do the presentation. All right.
Yes, ma'am.
My daughter Nicole is not a kale eater, and she likes the
Is this good?
Good.
All right, good. Awesome. It's the massaging technique. Yeah, you gotta give the kale a spa day and massage it to get all the good stuff out and put the good stuff in.
When I saw, all I could think about, I love kale, cooked kale. There's a big hunk of kale in your mouth, you know,
Yeah.
chewing on it. But this, the massaging was the trick.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Really good.
Totally transforms it. It allows it to hold on to the flavor with its little fingers.
Yes.
Has he always helped you with the cooking?
Yeah, well, this sort of came about when I was pregnant, or when we first had Matthias, and you know, I mean, he didn't travel well in a car, and we couldn't go anywhere, so.
My son, not me.
Yeah. Right. So we started getting Blue Apron. And that became 3 nights a week. We would have a date night, and the baby would be in his bouncy chair on the table staring at us. And, you know, we would cook a fancy meal together that we didn't know how to do. But that was sort of the way that we kept connected when, you know, I mean, right after you have a baby, things are sort of disconnected. And so it was nice just to be able to have that time together. And after that, I mean, we sort of found out that we really enjoyed it, and we worked well together. And we have a very small kitchen at home. Very teeny tiny kitchen.
Intimate, some may say.
Yeah, on
Yes.
the real estate, they would definitely say that it's an intimate kitchen. But it gave us the ability to learn to work through problems and work with each other in a small confined place. So it's been good marriage though.
Yeah. So and so since we've ordered Blue Apron, you know, those are all these organic ingredients sent to you with recipe cards and stuff, kind of like what we're doing here. And so that was 3 nights a week, and then we've just kind of carried that on, and this has been a really cool adventure for us. And if it weren't for friends and our eagerness to get healthier and learn, I don't know how far we would have made it on the journey. So
we're going to go ahead and get started with our talk because we are running a little late. This is titled How Food is Affecting You, and we're going to take you from the SAD diet to the RAD diet, okay? So SAD stands for the Standard American Diet, and we will sort of break things down as we go. But just so you sort of know ahead of time, we're going to start with our journey and what got us into this and why we think that this is important, and then we'll talk about where we were and the foods that we were eating and the processed foods and how that goes, and then we'll go into why plant-based really can change your life, and if you're on the fence or if you're facing some sort of health crisis, why this may be a solution for you. So here we go. This was us. Almost 4 years ago, we started this journey. Mela was 2, Matthias was 3. And we were realizing that we needed to make some changes, but weren't exactly sure how we were going to get there. So this is where I started. I had pain on my right side for about 3 years. Again, my favorite cooking ingredient was butter. My blood pressure was pretty high. I liked to pretend like it was only when I went to doctor's offices because that was my excuse and why I didn't need to make any changes. But at the worst, when I was having tunnel vision and headaches every day, it was 150 over 100. I was exhausted all the time, which I attributed just to having kids. I had really bad acne and dark circles. And so all of these things sort of led together, and all of these things, as I found out later, were attributed to diet. So I also had a lot of joint pain. I thought that that was just because I was almost 40, and you're supposed to hurt when you get out of bed in the morning, right? So I was also overweight. I rarely drank water, and even though I was cooking healthy, organic, well, I say healthy, even though I was cooking food at home and it was organic, it turns out good food isn't always good for you. And I still had this issue of eating out at restaurants during the day for breakfast and lunch. I mean, to the point that I was hiding
I found the wrappers under the
in the
seat.
truck because he'd be like, "Why are you spending all this money?" And I'd be like, "I don't know what you're talking about." So I went to the first doctor, who's a doctor here in Lexington. She is a holistic doctor, so she sort of aligned with where we were. And she recommended an anti-inflammatory diet, which sounds great, except for the fact that I got a piece of paper with everything that you can't eat. Well, what are you supposed to eat? Like, there was no bridge to get to where you are supposed to be. It was more a don't eat this, but not what you could eat. You know, at the time, my dad was living with us, so I was already making 2 meals a day, 3 times a day, you know, one for the babies, one for Jeremiah and Dad and I, and so that was 3 times a day, and it just got to the point that that was too overwhelming to even think about having 2 young toddlers and then throwing in a 3rd meal, because I was pretty sure they weren't going to go for it. So I decided to do nothing, and I waited another few months, and the pain on my side was really getting worse, and it got to the point where I was nauseous every night, and I knew that I needed to make some changes. So I go to a second doctor, and he's more of a traditional doctor, and he never touched me, never listened to my heart, never really even asked me any questions. He just looked at me and he said, "Well, you're a fat female and 40, it's your gallbladder. Oh, and by the way, your blood pressure's high, but I see that you're a veterinarian. So can I ask you a question?" And I was like, "Well, you've insulted me twice. Sure, let's go for this." So he's like, "You know, my dog's got ear infections.
Yeah.
Do you think that it'd be okay to use an over-the-counter medication in those?" And, you know, I was like, "We're done. Like, go to your vet. You know, don't try to treat things over the counter." And so that was sort of the last time that I went to a doctor for my gallbladder issue, and I sort of walked out of there feeling that I couldn't really trust the medical field. And whether that's true or not, that was sort of my perceived perception. And hindsight's 20/20, so I actually almost feel like it wasn't that they weren't telling me the truth. I think that perhaps what it was is that I wasn't hearing what I wanted to hear. So being a veterinarian, they say that nurses are the worst patients, but I would venture to say that veterinarians are probably right up there with them. And Google, of course, is everybody's favorite friend. So when I didn't get the answers I wanted to know if I had stones in my gallbladder. So I Googled how to do an ultrasound on a human. And I crawled onto the ultrasound table and I ultrasounded myself, and I didn't see any stones, there was no shadows, so I was like, okay, good. This means that I can at least fool around with this for a little while longer. We're not at a point where I need surgery. Now, I do not recommend that to anybody, but that's sort of what I did.
So my side of the story, as I mentioned, I'm a prior Marine, and good health. Once I left the Marine Corps, I kind of got on this trajectory of not eating right, not really taking care of myself. I developed plantar fasciitis, and that is excruciating painful. It's basically where you can't walk. Your calf muscle tightens up so much that it really pulls the tendon on the bottom of your foot, and it's excruciating painful. Especially when you wake up in the mornings and you step down that first step, it feels like needles are going into, just radiating up through your body. I had sleep apnea. I was diagnosed with alpha-gal, which is a tick-borne illness where I basically had to give up all types of red meat. So I could still eat chicken and fish. So if I would have continued, I've been issued EpiPens from the VA hospital so I don't go into anaphylactic shock just in case I'm exposed to some sort of red meat. I was overweight, I was overeating, I was fatigued all the time, I had mood swings. Now some of my issues come from the Marine Corps. I have a little bit of PTSD. It's the gift that the Marine Corps gives you sometimes. But these mood swings were different. And also I had insomnia, clouded judgment, and memory issues. And I had a list of medications from sleep, pain, etc. You name it, they tried to put me on it. Basically these Band-Aids to cover up these things that were bothering me.
And a lot of medications that covered up the medication side effects, which were
exactly.
a problem.
And so we just kind of had enough of that. So I was really unable to hear, even if my body was speaking to me, I was really unable to hear what it was saying. And so the first doctor insisted on steroid injections and PRP. Steroid injections are bad enough. They basically stick the needle into your bottom of your foot where it hurts, and they inject you, and sometimes they hit the bone, and it's just awful. Now PRP is a different monster. That's a protein-rich plasma. So they draw from your blood, and they refine that down to get the protein-rich plasma out of it, and then they inject that back into your foot, which is absolutely awful. I do not recommend it. The steroid injections resulted in bone density loss for me. So I was having these random rib breakages. One time I broke a rib, I coughed and I opened the door for Sarah to go in, and I snapped a rib. And another time, this is before I turned 40, I was picking up some firewood and I snapped a rib. And we finally found out that it was attributed to these steroid injections, which basically causes you to lose bone density. So we were kind of done with that. So the second doctor recommended surgery to basically cut my fascia. So you go in and they cut the tendon that's down there to release this pressure on it, and you could have 40 to 50% loss of your arch. And it would inevitably lead to arthritis because you're compensating elsewhere in your body, and all of that equals chronic pain. That's another thing that they tell you. You're going to have chronic pain for the rest of your life, so you're going to have to be on this medication for the rest of your life for pain. I wasn't wanting to do that. I couldn't run and play with the kids. My feet and legs and back hurt so bad. And it was really time to start making changes. Basically, we came to the same spot. We need to make some changes. My third and fourth doctor, also holistic doctor, recommended an anti-inflammatory diet. But just like Sarah, they give you these lists of things of what you can eat and what you can't eat. And all the things that we couldn't eat were the things that we were eating. So how do you make this change? And how do you bridge that gap? So basically you throw your hands up and you say, where do we start? Okay, well, we're just going to keep on doing this way. And my fourth doctor kind of...
scenario as I had been having most every night for a few years. And I very clearly hear a voice in my head that says, you can change your life, but you need to do a cleanse and take probiotics, and you need to basically change the way you're living. And it was the first time I'd really heard a voice this clear, and it sort of I didn't know how to take it or what to do with it. And so I did nothing. I sat on it for a few days. And Jeremiah, around the same time, had that same sort of experience.
Yeah, I was sitting on our porch, and I was just basically feeling, because when you lose your health, you lose your potential and you lose your purpose, and that is a dark, devastating time. And so
we basically had a conversation, and we decided that what we would do was we would clean up our life, that we wanted to be around for our children, and that the way we were living wasn't going to facilitate that. So, you know, we were relatively young in our eyes, and we wanted to be around for our kids. You know, with plantar fasciitis, he was unable to run with our kids. You know, here's a 2 and a 3-year-old, and he can't run and play with them.
I'd already given up racquetball. I couldn't play racquetball anymore, which is a passion.
We had a lot of things that we had given up on that we thought we were just too old for, and then we realized that we weren't ready to give up on those things. We weren't ready to give up on ourselves, and we were going to make a change. So again, we're still left with, we want to do this now. We're committed to doing this, but again, how do we make that change? So I had been seeing a dermatologist in DC, and she was doing injections under my eyes and selling me a really expensive chemical-laden skincare treatment, and I was unhappy with it, and I was looking for a more natural solution. So at work one day, I see these natural products and decided that I wanted to talk to them about it, because this is a vegan company and they have plant-based products, and the very cool thing about it is they talk about feeding your skin versus just covering it up with plumpers or other things that are really dehydrating your skin and making it worse. So I contacted the lady, the consultant, and I asked her to come talk to us. And so this is sort of how meeting Beth went. She came to the office, and that day I was having a really hard time. So on the way to work, I used to work in Cumberland, which is about 2 hours away, and I was having really bad tunnel vision. And so I don't know if you've ever driven 60 over the mountain towards Amherst, but there's no real good place to pull off, and there's no really good place to have issues not being able to see. It was kind of a rainy spring morning, and
she calls me, she's terrified. I talk her through it. She's scared. She doesn't know if she's going to pass out or what, but she just asked me to stay on the phone with her until she made it to work. And of course, there's a dead zone there, so for about 45 minutes, there's no cell contact whatsoever. So I didn't know if she'd made it or not until she got there.
So I got to Amherst, and I stopped at McDonald's, because that's where I stopped every morning, and I got a chicken biscuit and a Coke, which made me feel better. And then, you know, I stopped at the gas station right before I got to work, and I got another Coke and a Mountain Dew, because this was my typical how to get through the day to get to lunch. And then I have a meeting for lunch with this health and wellness consultant, and, you know, I chose a salad that day because that's a healthier option than French fries, right? So I'm still eating my chicken sandwich for lunch, but I'm eating a salad because I look better to myself, right? So this is my thought process at this point. And, you know, she was very kind and no judgment, and nothing was said to me about the way that I was eating. And, you know, she very clearly looked at me. My skin was sort of pale, and I told her that I had a headache, and she said, "What is your blood pressure?" And I said, "I don't know. I don't really check it." So I checked it, and that's the day that I found out that it was actually 150 over 100, which was kind of a wake-up call. You know, this is getting into a point where you can have a stroke. You're certainly hurting your heart. You're hurting your kidneys. Like, they call high blood pressure the silent killer, because for many, many years you can be affecting yourself without even knowing it, or in some cases knowing it, but just choosing not to do anything about it. So that was definitely a further wake-up call. And she said, "You know, I'd love to help you with your skincare, but first, I really think that you need to consider doing a cleanse." And so there's that word again that I've heard, and it was like, you know, here's this path that's put in front of you, and she goes over the program with me, and it's everything that we'd been asking for that we didn't even know we were asking for. A 30-day program on how to go from here to here, and we're going to spell it out for you, and we're going to give you supplements, and we're going to make it easy so you don't even have to think about it. So here are the recipes. All you do is just follow the program. And so I called Jeremiah, and I could almost hear his eyes rolling on the other side. And he said, "Well, yes, we've talked about this. We said that we were going to make a healthy lifestyle change. This has been presented to us, so let's go for it. And that was sort of our start with Arbonne. And, you know, by no means do I feel like you need a program like this. We just currently were very lost, and we didn't know how to get from point A to point B, and we didn't have people that we could talk to at the time because all of our friends ate the way that we did, and so we were sort of, you know, on an island by ourselves with no bridge, right?
And so that's why another reason that we're here. You don't need a program like that. You just need a community. You need a
friends and
community
support.
who you can ask questions to. We don't know all the answers, but who does? And so we did a 30-day cleanse. We cut out all the major things, the dairy, coffee, cut out a lot of fruit except for green apples and any berry. We had that. And after 30 days, we felt so good we wanted to keep doing it to see how
Our
far.
taste changed
Yeah,
completely after
completely
2 weeks.
changed.
Things that, I mean, you started tasting things that you didn't know that you weren't tasting before.
Yeah.
And I've never been a smoker, but I sort of likened it to being a smoker. They say when you quit smoking, that you start tasting all of the stuff that you didn't know that
Yeah.
you couldn't taste before. And so we really experienced that at about 2 weeks in, cutting out the sugar, cutting out a lot of the unhealthy fats, and cutting out a lot of the inflammatory foods, which was pretty awesome. So that was another thing that sort of kept us going and keeping us excited. So why 90?
Yeah, we went for 90 days.
So we ended up going for a total of 90 days. At this point, we are still eating lean meat. So we were eating fish and chicken, but we weren't doing any other dairy, eggs, things along those lines. So it's, I mean, to say it's vegan with those two meats doesn't sound right, but that's, I don't know how else to
It's
describe
a somewhat
it.
vegan
It's
diet. Yeah.
vegan with chicken and fish, which is not. But so anyway, so we decided to do it for 90 days. And the reason we did it for 90 days was because when I put an animal on a food trial, we eliminate the food for 90 days. And that sort of flushes everything out of their system. It allows them to have a full reset. And then, like I had mentioned earlier, we were doing a Whole30 based recipes. And so with that program, what you do, and with Arbonne also, is you take out all of these inflammatory mediators and you take out these allergen foods, and then you put one back at a time. So the first thing we tried was dairy. Okay, so we're going to put dairy back in. How do you feel? Does it make you feel like you have an issue? And it gives you the ability to sort of listen to your body. Turns out all of these years, I had a serious issue with gluten. And as soon as I ate gluten, I got a massive headache. And I was like, wow, that was fast. Like, I thought I just had headaches, but little did I know that I was sort of poisoning myself all this time, and my body was screaming at me that I had this issue.
But you're so unhealthy, you
But you
don't know
can't
why
hear
your
it.
body is screaming. So after you do a cleanse of that nature, you can individually pick out. I could tell you if the minute I ate something, how it was going to affect me. So yeah, we might need to step up a little bit.
Yeah. So for full disclosure, it took about a year to really resolve both of our issues, and that's a year of eating really clean and trying to do well. So Arbonne gave us the re-education that we needed. It basically gave us the tools that we needed so that we could relearn what we thought we knew about food. And I want to point out here that this is not a lifestyle change of limits, but instead is really limitless. You can have your favorite recipes. There's ways that you can rework them into your life. One of my favorite things is chicken piccata. Well, now that we don't eat chicken, that was sort of off my list, but I recently found that lion's mane is a really great substitute for chicken. So lion's mane is a mushroom. You can use it as a seafood supplement or a seafood alternative or all sorts of things. And so lion mane cooked similarly with piccata over top of it and some healthy gluten-free noodles.
That's really good.
It worked out really well. And so that's sort of how we beat the knife. And both of us were looking at having surgery, and neither one of us wanted to go down that road. And so through diet and lifestyle change, we were sort of able to mitigate that and put that off.
And the unfortunate thing is that's the first thing that our doctors went to. Okay, well, we have to treat you with surgery. This is basically the only way, and it's not the only way. And we're both here to tell you that the majority of your ailments can be stopped in its tracks and even reversed simply by, we feel, switching to a plant-based diet.
Sure. So many of us have failed at diets, and I mean, I'm sure every single one of us can raise our hand, right? Like, so, but why don't diets work? Diets don't work because there's a finite period, right? We're going to do this for 10 days, right? Who's done the cabbage soup diet?
Yeah,
it's a
I
good
have.
one, right? How about the boiled egg diet? Anyone done the boiled egg diet? I hate boiled eggs, and I convinced him that we should do the boiled egg diet because it was 10 days, and it promised that you were going to lose 20 pounds in 10 days. And I was like, let's do it. So
It was
but
just
then,
10 days of mad on her end.
It was horrible.
It
It
was
was
terrible.
absolutely horrible. But here's the thing. When you get off the diet, then what do? You go right back to what you were eating, and then we say the diet failed, but it's not really the diet's fault, is it? Because we didn't make these lifestyle changes. So when you're looking to go plant-based, it's really important to realize that if you slip and you fall back into it, don't give up. Just sort of get back onto it, you know? I mean, we sometimes take the kids to get ice cream, and I really enjoy it, but I no longer can keep ice cream in my refrigerator because I know that I can't.
We make
not
ourselves
have it.
drive to Stanton
Right.
now to get
It's even
good ice
further
cream,
than
yeah.
Lexington. Like, this is a real commitment. Like, we are going to go there, and this is going to be something that we're doing, and it's going to be fun. So if you're confused, it is
Yeah.
by design.
Not our design.
Not our design, right? So
Media.
you know, media and all of these different avenues have ways of keeping us confused so that we sort of stay in the cycle.
And what we're talking about, eggs are good today, but then tomorrow the new headlines are, okay, eggs are bad for you, whatever. Okay, just
Fat's good,
just
but
eliminate
no,
just
now it's
eliminate
not
those
fat,
things.
and sugar's okay, but not this sugar. And
Plant-based diet is even keeled and stays the course.
So this is a breakdown of the standard American diet. You can find this on Google very easily, which is where I found it, but it sort of illustrates what the standard American diet is. So if you are eating what the majority of Americans eat, then about 85% of what you're eating is processed food or animal products. That doesn't leave a whole lot of nutrition, you know, for the good body that you would like to have. So salt, sugar, and fat all work in your brain to increase dopamine, which translates to an addiction. So this is the same hormone that works with all addictions in our body. And so, you know, and I think that we say, oh, well, I'm not addicted to anything. But if you're eating processed foods, and there's a very good chance that you are, in fact, addicted to those foods, and that is by design so that you keep going back.
And as I mentioned earlier, we're a creature of habits. So our habits, whether positive or negative, they're still comforting to us. So, and it's comforting because it's a predictable result, and dopamine is the root cause of that predictable result. It's going to take you to a really happy place, and it could be detrimental to your health.
Right. So when we talk about addiction, you know, these were some of the things that we really struggled with as far as what foods caused us problems. You know, when we were looking to make a change, the biggest thing was, and this is the same when we were trying to do a diet, well, when do you start, right? There's always someone's birthday, or there's a holiday around the corner.
Valentine's Day's coming up.
Right? Or, you know, there's always a reason and an excuse why you shouldn't do this. And we hope that through these classes, or through your own experiment or your own sort of things, that you will find that you don't have to give things up. You just have to rethink how you're thinking about this. That there are lots of great foods that you can eat that don't have the things that you're trying to avoid in them. One of the women that's going to cook, she's a vegan chef, and she makes the most amazing cheeseless cheesecakes, and they're made out of cashews. And so they taste just like it, if not better. So there's
Definitely
yeah,
better.
definitely better. So there's a lot of really amazing things out there, and it's fun, you know, like we said, to sort of experiment and find that.
This is really interesting. And I just on this slide here, this is not including your candies, your soft drinks, or anything that are meant to be sweet. When we go with this,
go for it, absolutely.
So the average person eats 40 teaspoons of sugar a day in their processed food. So they add sugar to this to keep you coming back.
You did the math on this last night. How much was that a month or a week? Was it like 2.5 pounds?
It's right at 2.5 pounds of sugar the average American is eating, and that's not in soda, candy, or anything that's meant to be sweet. It's just the stuff on the shelf. So basically what we're saying is, if you take all the stuff that they add sugar to in the supermarket and you take that out, you're left anywhere between 11 to 18% of stuff that's still on the shelf. So the other percentage is stuff that has sugar that's added to it.
So this is a real quick slide. The problem with the process, or one of the big problems with the process, is that when they're changing the food and they're making it into whatever it is they're making, you lose the real ingredients, you lose the real nutrition. Then they add those back chemically and synthetically, and then that doesn't taste very good, so then they're also adding additional sugar, salt, and fat to that so that it tastes good.
So yes, sugar, salt, and fat, the things that we do need. We do need sugar for proper brain function. We need all this stuff to function properly. But it seems that by design, what we need is being used against us. And we're not vilifying anyone. This is just making you aware of the processes and highly refined foods that are out there, the convenience foods.
Yeah. So this was something that I also thought. I thought that I could go to the gym and run for an hour and then I could still eat what I wanted. But the problem is you're still feeding your body that same fuel, right? So the fuel is bad and your car is not going to run well if you're not giving it the appropriate fuel. So this was another sort of misconception that we just wanted to touch on. This particular slide is one of the saddest slides that I think I've ever seen. So 6 in 10 adults in the United States already have a chronic disease, and 4 in 10 have 2 or more. So the leading cause of death and disability in our nation, which cost us about $3.5 trillion in annual costs.
And these are old studies too.
Right. So if you take a look at this, so heart disease, cancer, stroke, Alzheimer's, diabetes, and chronic kidney. I think we know where the chronic lung disease comes into play. But all the rest of these major chronic diseases are associated and can be mitigated with food.
Yeah. And there's a lot of research out there, a lot of doctors out there who swear to the fact that these diseases are preventable, these diseases are stoppable, and in many cases they're reversible.
So this is just a real quick definition about what chronic disease is, but the most important thing is that a lot of doctors won't tell you what the result is. You know, I know that I specifically went and asked a lot of questions about, well, what's the cause of this? And I got a lot of different answers, but no one ever pointed me to the fact that the dark circles under my eyes were associated with the gluten intolerance, that the acne was associated with the fact that my small intestines weren't happy and that I actually had leaky bowel, that there are a lot of different issues that are associated with what you're seeing on the outside that are actually directly linked to what is going on the inside.
So chronic diseases aren't, go back to the slide, no. They're not contagious, not prevented by vaccines, they're not cured by medications, they can be hidden by medications, but not curable. And they develop over time as a result of no one knows, genetics or whatever. No one ever tells you that it's what you eat.
So just want to touch on this real quick. Again, as a veterinarian, I had to put this in there because one of the saddest things that I see is pets that look like their owners. And so obesity doesn't it only exists in animals and humans, or the domestic animals that we care for and humans. And the other really sad thing that I've seen as a trend recently is the fact that I see a lot of animals coming in dying of the same diseases that their people are also fighting. So it's really sad when I have to, when I'm diagnosing an animal with cancer and then the owner tells me, well, my husband just died of that, a few months ago. And it breaks my heart. And so it's actually one of the reasons that I've sort of stepped away from veterinary medicine, because that correlation between the fact that what we're feeding our animals is, they're our sentinels. They are absolutely 100% our sentinels, and they are screaming to us, we have a problem. So this is a real quick little thing. Again, we wanted to touch on some of the things that were confusing or misnomers before we went into the plant-based thing. And one of the questions that you may get when you do this is, well, how are you going to get your calcium? If you want to prevent osteoporosis, you've got to have calcium, right? So this sort of shows you what calcium does in our body, and it creates an acidity in our body that actually leaches calcium out of our bones to buffer it. And then the calcium that we think that we're getting not only is lost through our urine, but you're also pulling calcium out of your bones that also then gets lost. You have anything you wanted to say? Sorry, I'm sort of
No, it's good.
going through this fast. This is something that I also wanted to touch on real quick. One of the things that we think is really important, and one of the things that's sort of a recent buzz term, is the microbiome. Anyone really familiar with that? So the microbiome are all the bacteria that live on and in us. There's actually more bacteria that live on and in us than there are cells in our body, which is kind of a crazy thing to say.
It's
like
creepy.
we are more bacteria than we are cells. The gut produces 85% of your serotonin. So if your gut is unhealthy, chances are you're also very unhappy, which also sort of gets back into that cycle of eating foods that make you feel good, which ultimately kill the bacteria, which just sort of go along. And there's new studies out that are saying that your gut is a direct loop back then to your brain, and it may be associated with Alzheimer's, which I thought was pretty interesting.
And also your gut's it's the starting point for your immune system as well. So if you have a healthy gut, you're probably not as susceptible to a lot of things that people who have an unhealthy gut biome are susceptible to.
So the good news is, though, if food is the problem, then food is also the solution. And so that's where the plant-based the plant-based diet sort of comes in. The China Study is a great book. If you haven't seen the documentary Forks Over Knives, we definitely recommend it. It's really phenomenal. They've got lots of cookbooks. The China Study basically was this doctor's realization that, he grew up a dairy farmer, and he grew up eating meat and potatoes just like all of us here in Virginia did. And this was his realization that what the cause was the food, and that if you changed that, then you could change the course of these disease processes. But it was done in China, and the foods that they were eating were directly related to specific cancers and specific diseases. So pretty good information. So I've been talking a lot.
No, I'm used to it. So like we said earlier, it's not a diet, it's a lifestyle change. And if you really like what you've had this evening, and these are just simple ingredients put together in a simple way, and it's a little time consuming. But I like this slide because it kind of gives you a measurement of where you are. And I would say that when Sarah and I first started, we're probably around a 1 here, and not knowing how to bridge the gap to get to the other side. And I think we've been all the way to 8 before, and then we kind of slip back, and you find the things that work well in your life. And so no matter where you are on this bridge, like we said, we want to help our community and everybody here bridge the gap from wherever they are on this spectrum to where they want to go. The main thing is not to go back to an unhealthy eating routine, but to keep pushing forward, and any little step forward is in a positive direction.
Yeah. And if you have a community and a group of people that are supporting you, then it's really easy to make that change. So we can do this one, I think, pretty quick if you want to do it. This is just sort of an illustration.
Yeah, so it's basically, it's a good illustration, kind of breaks it down. So if you look at the oil in comparison to potatoes, beans, and rice, fruits, and veggies, lots, and the cheeses and the meats and stuff here, you get a lot of calories with a little bit of full feeling in your stomach, and that's why we tend to overeat. We just keep packing this stuff in because it hasn't hit that valve in there or whatever it is that tells you that you're full. So, but by eating a plant-based diet, you get fuller faster, same amount of calories, but it lasts with you a long time.
The stretch receptors.
The stretch receptors. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
So we had talked earlier. Do you go cold turkey, or do you sort of gradually go into this? I personally don't think there's a right or a wrong. However, I will say that when we went cold turkey, it really helped to break the sugar and salt and fat addictions, and by doing that, then you can control your cravings so that you have a better chance of not having that backslide. Once you get to the end of probably a 90-day would be recommended, then you can try things back to see if it causes you issues like gluten or some of these other things. But it definitely, if you have the willpower to go cold turkey, you will certainly have better outcomes because you will break those addictions that are really sort of causing you to have a backslide.
Yeah, it can be tough. I mean, we've experienced it. We were there. You do have these food addictions. I was addicted to peanut M&Ms. I absolutely love them. I would go into keep them in the refrigerator, a nice cold handful of peanut M&Ms. You eat them. I'd eat them for a handful for breakfast, a couple handfuls for lunch, and that's a really hard thing to break. I don't touch them now. I've totally walked away from them. I don't. I do not like them. But you will be a little fatigued as you're going through this change. You might have headaches because if you're used to certain foods that make you feel a certain way.
But you're also metabolizing toxins out of your body, so you have to realize that as you're changing, your body is also changing. So these things are a process of you getting healthier, and even though there may be a short period where you feel unhealthy, this is going to help you sort of flush these toxins out so that you can get healthy.
Yeah. And you could be gassy and weak and anxious. Maybe not in that order, but it could happen, yeah.
No one will take better care of you than you.
Yeah. And so, yeah, we're here to help you. So you can either keep going in the same direction or moderately change and go in the other direction. But I feel for certain that any aches and pains that you have can be fixed by your diet.
Yeah. So if you find yourself at this crossroads, just know that you do have a community here to support you. And from what it sounds like, we've got a lot of experienced people in here, so there's going to be a lot of really wonderful ways that we can stay connected and sort of work through this process together. And by choosing this healthier path, you will get your life back. And we hope that we can help you do that any way we can. So then I guess the question is, where will your journey take you?
Yeah. And it starts today. And being here, just being here and wanting to learn more or just add to your recipe list is a positive step in the right direction. So I commend everybody for being here. And like we've mentioned earlier, we're not experts. We're learning just like everybody else. And we fall down, but we pick ourselves back up, especially during the holidays. I think we fell down a little bit.
So we wanted to thank you guys all for being here. Thank you for sitting through our talk. Hopefully it was inspiring to some of you, or we've got one more slide. Okay. So thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for everyone who helped put this on. And
thank you.
Cool. So just to talk real quick. Yes, Pastor Bob?
Just 2 questions.
Okay.
When is the next meeting, and is it okay to bring a friend?
Absolutely. Please bring as many friends as you would like. Just let us know so we'll have the right amount of food. The next meeting, because last week was postponed due to the storm, is going to be next week, which is January 30th. Heidi, who is in the kitchen, who has been vegan her entire life, and is a vegan mama, so she knows all sorts of kid-friendly recipes, is going to be doing a healthy twist on Mexican. February 13th, right before the love holiday that we don't speak of, we're going to do lasagna you will love with Kate, who is also a vegan chef in the area and does all sorts of fun dessert sort of culinary twists on favorites, and she sells a lot of her stuff at
local markets.
Markets, and so you can check her out there. February 27th is going to be a really fun one. We're going to do a kids cooking episode, and we're going to have Hazel, who's going to be teaching us how to make mac and cheese, and then we're going to do one March 13th, March 27th, and then April 10th. And so those menus haven't necessarily been set at this point, but basically the sequence is every other week with the exception of this next week. Okay. Mondays and Fridays we will be posting the ingredients and how to prepare them on Facebook. We may do some teasers throughout the week as well, just to sort of keep everyone's interest piqued. I know Jeremiah will probably do something about the tea that we had here tonight. We may also do Jeremiah's amazing coffee recipe that I personally like, and it's decaf now, so everyone here can drink it. And so other little fun things as we go. If you have recipes that you particularly like and you would like to share them, please let us know. We can do that there, and we can sort of keep this momentum rolling and keep people getting healthy in one step at a time, right?
Yeah. And I want to thank our church for allowing us to do this here. It really means a lot. I know we have a very strong health message, and And I think this just adds to it, to just keep our community healthy. And I think we had a question.
Excuse me. I would like to hear a little bit about your journey after you got clarity on your spiritual journey and how it brought you to a spiritual journey.
So we drank, and so when we did Arbonne, we stopped drinking. And so each layer that we sort of removed, I sort of akin to this haziness that we had.
Mm-hmm.
And then through this process, like I said, it will be 4 years this Memorial Day.
Yeah.
And last year, about January, about this time, we both just sort of had the feeling that we wanted to know why we didn't know God and why we, the question just kept being posed in different media outlets.
In different ways, yeah.
And in different sort of ways. And we were like, well, why don't we? And so I think that through clarity and through clearing our minds of toxins and substances that we were actually able to hear the prompting that was to ultimately bring us here. And the fact that we aligned, we came to this church because of the health message. We really liked the fact that it had a health message. We liked a lot of aspects of it, but that was one of the things that really drew us to it, was the fact that they cared and that seemed to be something that was important.
And go ahead, yeah.
I'd like to ask about toxic foods. I graduated school in 1983. Up to that point, I'd never heard of a peanut allergy. Every kid in school had peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Now, I personally think perhaps it is due to the decades of herbicides and pesticides in the soil that go into the peanuts. I also would like to get some input on the gluten thing. Never heard of gluten intolerance up until about 10 years ago, and it seems like everybody's
got an issue.
Could that have something to do with generically altered foods?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of research out there that gets pointed to that, pesticides and things for these allergies. Absolutely. I agree with that research. And as far as the gluten intolerance, it's not, we've read articles, it's not gluten intolerance, it's modern wheat intolerance, and it goes back to the pesticides and the herbicides and things like that. Now, we can't really stand up here and say that definitively, but if you look at the small print and you look at some of the subdued research that's out there about it, good doctors trying to do good things, and good researchers doing good things, it's not something that's going to make mainstream media at all.
Glycophosphates definitely are a problem for sure. Any other questions or anything? Okay, well, wonderful. Thank you. Sorry that we ran over a few minutes, but thank you all again so much for being here. We hope we see you next week. And yes, please bring a friend.
Yeah.
And those of you who joined us online, thank you so much. And please leave your comments on the Facebook page, and we will make sure to send you the information that our in-house guests received tonight. Thanks so much. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you. God bless.